Stallone, he took all the hits and all the bumps, and
Oh, he was an animal.
yeah, I kind of messed his collarbone up, by accident. But he was amazing. I mean, I remember when I was going to go do that film, Vince McMahon Sr. fired me because of that movie.
They looked like the perfect family on TV. Big mansion, famous dad, hit reality show. But the real story of the Hogans will break your heart. While Hogan Knows Best was filming, Hulk was secretly sleeping with his daughter's best friend. His son ended up in jail, and his wife claimed he choked her during fights. Years later, Brooke Hogan got married and had twins without telling either parent. Now the heartbreaking details of a famous family are coming to light. Terry Jean Bollea, later known as Hulk Hogan, was born on August 11, 1953, in Augusta, Georgia. His father, Pete, worked as a construction foreman. His mother, Ruth, taught dance and took care of the home. They didn't have much money, but they had strong values. That's what kept the family close. Terry was the youngest in the family, and even though life wasn't always easy, he felt supported. His parents stayed in his life until their deaths. Pete passed away in 2001, and Ruth in 2011. But growing up wasn't always happy for Terry. He was bullied badly as a kid. Other children teased him for having what he called the biggest head in elementary school. On top of that, he struggled with his weight. He felt so ashamed that he wouldn't take his shirt off at the beach. Years later, he talked about those painful memories during an anti-bullying event. Even though those early years were tough, they helped shape the man he became. He turned that pain into power and later told his fans to train, say your prayers, and eat your vitamins. When Terry was still a toddler, just 18 months old, the family moved to Port Tampa, Florida. That move changed his life. Port Tampa was a quiet place, but it gave Terry the space to grow. He fell in love with baseball and became a standout pitcher in Little League. By high school, he was so good that professional scouts were watching him. But baseball wasn't his only interest. Around age 16, he discovered professional wrestling. He would go watch matches at the Tampa Sportatorium. One wrestler stood out, superstar Billy Graham. His huge muscles and wild style stuck in Terry's mind. Graham would later become a major influence on his future wrestling character. Everything was going well until a serious arm injury in high school ended Terry's baseball dreams. That was a turning point. Without baseball, he started thinking more seriously about wrestling. But even then, life had more twists in store. In 1986, tragedy hit the Bollea family. Terry's older brother Alan died of a drug overdose at just 38. Alan had struggled with addiction for years. Terry had tried to help him. He once gave Alan $4,000 to cover bills. But instead, Alan used the money for drugs. The loss hit Terry hard. It also left a mark on Alan's son, Michael Bollea, who would later become a wrestler too, known as Horace Hogan. That wasn't even the first tragedy Michael had faced. His mother had been murdered years earlier. For Terry, the contrast between his rising fame and his brother's sad end was a painful reminder of how fragile life could be. Wrestling had always been in Terry's mind, but before he stepped into the ring, he took a different path. In 1976, at 23 years old, he was a musician. He played bass guitar and started a rock band called Ruckus with two local friends. The band got popular around Tampa. They played bars and clubs where, by chance, many wrestlers liked to hang out after shows. At the same time, Terry was going to college. He studied music and finance, first at Hillsborough Community College, then at the University of South Florida. But juggling school and band life wasn't easy. As Ruckus got more gigs, school took a back seat. Eventually, he dropped out to focus on music full-time. And that's when fate stepped in. One night, while playing with Ruckus in a smoky Florida bar, Terry was spotted by Jack and Gerald Briscoe. They were famous wrestling brothers. What caught their eye wasn't the music, it was Terry himself. At 6 feet 7 inches tall and over 300 pounds, he looked like someone born to wrestle. They walked up to him and asked if he'd ever considered joining the wrestling world. Then they introduced him to Hiro Matsuda, a strict trainer with a fearsome reputation. What happened next became a wrestling legend. On Terry's very first day of training, Matsuda broke his leg. It was meant as a test to see if Terry had what it took. Most people would have quit, but Terry didn't. After 10 weeks of recovery, he came back. Matsuda tried to break his leg again, but Terry blocked him. That moment earned him respect. After a full year of tough training, Jack Briscoe handed Terry his first pair of wrestling boots. He told him he was scheduled for his debut the following week. The date was August 10, 1977, in Fort Myers, Florida. Terry Bollea was no longer just a kid from Port Tampa. He was about to become something much bigger. In 1979, a young wrestler named Terry Bollea made his first real appearance on national television. At the time, he was just another newcomer in the wrestling world, still finding his way. He had wrestled in smaller places and even wore a mask under the name the Super Destroyer. But everything started to change when he caught the attention of Vincent McMahon Sr., the man who ran the World Wrestling Federation, what we now know as WWE. Bollea had only been wrestling for about a year, so it was a big deal when McMahon Sr. gave him a shot. But the moment that truly kicked off his rise didn't happen inside a wrestling ring. It happened on a talk show. Bollea was a guest, sitting next to Lou Ferrigno, the actor who played the Incredible Hulk. Ferrigno was known for his massive muscles, but Bollea was even bigger. The talk show host pointed it out, saying Bollea looked like an even larger version of the Hulk. That one comment changed everything. Backstage, wrestlers started calling him Terry the Hulk Boulder. The name caught on quickly, and that nickname would soon become part of a brand that millions of fans would never forget. Before the world knew him as Hulk Hogan, Bollea went through several changes. He was trying out different names and looks, hoping something would stick. His first match had been in Florida in 1977, where he fought Brian Blair. Not long after that, he put on a mask and became a character called the Super Destroyer, a mysterious, hooded figure. Over the next couple of years, he tried out names like Terry Boulder and Sterling Golden as promoters searched for the right image for someone with his size and presence. But then came another turning point. Vincent McMahon Sr. had a strategy for making wrestling stars feel familiar to different groups of fans. He gave them names that matched certain backgrounds, like Pedro Malvez for Puerto Rican fans or Bruno Sammartino for Italian Americans. When it came time to give Bollea a more lasting identity, McMahon decided to market him as Irish American, even though Bollea wasn't Irish at all. That's when the name Hulk Hogan was born. At first, Bollea thought the name sounded strange. He joked that Hulk Hogan sounded more like a sandwich than a wrestler. But over time, he saw just how powerful that name became. It stuck. It worked. And more than 4 decades later, people still remember it. In the early 1980s, Hulk Hogan walked into a restaurant in Los Angeles and met a woman named Linda Claridge. She wasn't from the wrestling world, but something clicked right away. They hit it off, even though Hulk was constantly on the road. He called her from hotel rooms, airports, and arenas. For 2 years, they kept the connection alive over the phone. Then, in December 1983, they got married. By then, Hulk wasn't just a wrestler. He was on the rise. Their wedding wasn't a quiet event. Vince McMahon was there. So was Andre the Giant. The moment was big, flashy, and full of star power, just like Hulk's career was becoming. Linda, on the other hand, brought a bit of normal life to the chaos. For a while, the mix seemed to work. A few years later, their daughter Brooke was born. That was in 1988, right in the middle of Hulkamania. 2 years after Brooke, they had a son, Nick. Now they were a family of 4. But fame doesn't slow down for fatherhood. Hulk was barely home. He traveled constantly, flying city to city, match after match, cameras always rolling. Still, he tried to show up when it counted. Sometimes, he brought the family along to events. Sometimes, they were part of the spotlight. The world saw the family as picture perfect. And in 2005, they even invited TV cameras into their lives with a reality show called Hogan Knows Best. To fans, it looked like the dream: fame, money, family. But behind the scenes, things were more complicated than anyone knew. While all of that was happening, Hulk's wrestling career was exploding. In 1983, Vince McMahon gave him a new image: bigger, louder, unforgettable. Hulk Hogan. He looked like a superhero, massive, blonde, and full of energy. In 1984, he won the WWE Championship by beating the Iron Sheik. That was the birth of Hulkamania. Then came the match that changed everything: Wrestlemania 3. Hulk vs. Andre the Giant. In front of a massive crowd, Hulk lifted the 500-pound Andre and slammed him to the mat. The crowd went wild. That one moment made him a legend. After that, he wasn't just a wrestler. He was a pop culture icon. Movies, TV shows, lunchboxes, you name it, Hulk was on it. Through it all, he tried to keep his family close, even while the spotlight kept growing. The success didn't just bring fame. It brought a fortune. In 1992, the Hogans bought land in Bel Air, Florida, right by the water. They tore down the old house and spent 4 years building a mansion. It was massive, 17,000 square feet, with fancy rooms, a home gym, even a tanning salon. There were 7 fireplaces, a swimming pool with waterfalls, and a dock for boats. It looked like something out of a movie. That house became the backdrop for their reality show. It was also a symbol of everything they had built together. But things didn't last. In 2009, after 25 years of marriage, Hulk and Linda divorced. It wasn't quiet. The split made headlines. Linda ended up with a big piece of their money and business. The mansion that once stood for success went on the market. At first, it was worth $25 million, but over time, the value dropped. Eventually, it sold for just $6.2 million. In 2005, a new reality show called Hogan Knows Best started airing on VH1. It followed the famous wrestler Hulk Hogan and his family. At first, it seemed like a fun, light-hearted look at their daily lives. Hulk played the role of a strict but caring dad, especially when it came to his teenage daughter, Brooke. He didn't like her dating boys, and he often came up with silly ways to keep an eye on her. His wife, Linda, was the more relaxed parent. She didn't always agree with Hulk's strict rules or his interest in going back to wrestling. Their son Nick wanted to follow in his dad's footsteps, but Linda wasn't sure that was a good idea either. The show quickly became a hit. Viewers loved seeing this famous wrestler act like a regular dad, and the family's mix of celebrity life and everyday problems made people feel like they could relate. The first episode broke records and became the most-watched premiere in VH1 history. It looked like the Hogans had found a new kind of fame. But behind the scenes, things weren't as real as they seemed. Hulk later admitted in his book that the show was mostly scripted. The producers gave the family made-up situations and asked them to act them out. Everything was planned, even when it looked spontaneous. Sometimes, the family was told to behave in ways that weren't like them at all. For example, Nick once threw water balloons at neighbors on the show, but in real life, he would never do that. Linda even got up early just to put on makeup before the cameras arrived, pretending she had just woken up. While the show looked like a real peek into their lives, a lot of it was fake. The final episode was especially ironic. Hulk received a Father of the Year award and said he wanted to be Husband of the Year next. Just 1 month later, he and Linda filed for divorce. The show also focused on the kids' dreams. Brooke wanted to become a pop singer. Nick was shown as a prankster who loved fast cars. Brooke had already tried to start a music career before the show aired, but it didn't go well. Her first single didn't make the charts, and her record label dropped her. But with the help of the show, she got a second chance. She signed with new labels, and in 2006, she released an album. Her song, About Us, even reached the Billboard Hot 100. Meanwhile, Nick's love of racing cars became part of his story, though later he admitted that the way he acted on TV wasn't really him. He said, "I wasn't that person at all." Off-screen, his speeding became a real problem. He got several tickets in Florida and was sometimes caught driving over 100 miles per hour. Part of what made the show so popular was the way the family talked to each other. The show showed Hulk trying to guide his kids, even if his methods were intense. Brooke's dating life and Nick's growing interest in girls caused tension, especially with Hulk being so protective. Everything looked perfect on the outside. The Hogan family was famous, rich, and starring in their own reality show, Hogan Knows Best. But behind the scenes, things were falling apart fast. It all started to unravel in 2007. Hulk Hogan began an affair with a 33-year-old woman named Christiane Plant. She wasn't just any woman. She had worked with Hulk's daughter, Brooke, on her music and was close to the family. In fact, Brooke had considered her a friend. The betrayal hit like a bomb. Christiane later said the affair happened while Hulk and his wife Linda were already having problems, but nothing had been filed yet. That didn't matter to Linda. When she found out Hulk had cheated with Brooke's friend, she made the decision to end the marriage. Brooke, completely crushed, posted online that she would never forget the hurt caused by two people she loved so much. But that wasn't the only crack in the foundation. Linda had spent 24 years in that marriage, and she later revealed it had been painful in more ways than one. She described moments of fear, saying Hulk would throw lamps, slam doors, and even put his hands around her throat during arguments. It wasn't just physical. The emotional toll ran deep. She constantly questioned herself, wondering if she was just a dumb housewife or not good enough. Then came the crash that changed everything again. In August 2007, their son Nick got into a horrible car accident. He was driving too fast, over 60 miles per hour in a 40 miles per hour zone, and slammed into a palm tree. His passenger, John Graziano, was a young Marine who had just come home from Iraq. He was left with severe brain damage and would need full-time care for the rest of his life. John's father put it bluntly, "What Al-Qaeda couldn't do to my son, Nick did in minutes." Nick was charged with reckless driving and underage drinking. He was sentenced to 8 months in jail in 2008. That incident alone might have destroyed any normal family's peace, but for the Hogans, it was just one more blow. The show, once a hit, couldn't survive all this. Hogan Knows Best was canceled in 2007. The drama was too real, too raw, even for reality TV. The show's producer admitted that things were tense even before the cameras started rolling. Having cameras in the house all day just made everything worse. The final straw came when Linda filed for divorce, and Hulk didn't even hear it from her. A reporter handed him the paperwork. She wanted half of their $9.5 million in assets, including their mansion in Florida. With the family falling apart, VH1 had no choice but to pull the plug. Still, they tried to keep something alive. In 2008, VH1 launched a new show, Brooke Knows Best. It was supposed to focus on Brooke living on her own in Miami, far from the chaos. She moved into a penthouse with 2 roommates and tried to start fresh. But the family drama followed her. Hulk kept showing up, sometimes frustrating Brooke and her roommates. Linda appeared too, often upset and emotional about everything that had happened. Brooke tried to stay strong, but by 2009, it was clear the stress was getting to her. Friends said she was anxious and overwhelmed, trying to carry the emotional weight of everyone around her. The show only lasted 2 seasons. It couldn't escape the shadow of everything the Hogan family had been through. Hulk Hogan thought he had seen it all in the wrestling ring, but nothing prepared him for the blow that came outside of it. In late November 2007, after 24 years of marriage, Linda Hogan filed for divorce without warning. Hulk, whose real name is Terry Bollea, didn't find out from his wife or a lawyer. A reporter called him for a comment, and at first, he didn't believe it. He hung up. 5 minutes later, he called back, still stunned. "Holy smokes," he said, "you just knocked the bottom out of me." Linda had already been away in California for weeks. When she filed, she asked for their son, Nick, to live with her, and for Hulk to only have visitation rights. She also went after their house, alimony, and child support. People were already whispering about cheating, but after the filing, Linda's publicist said it outright. She had learned Hulk had slept with their daughter, Brooke's best friend. What followed was one of the ugliest breakups in entertainment history. The divorce dragged on for nearly 2 years, filled with public insults and bitter legal battles. Both sides fired shots through the media. Linda's team accused Hulk of lying to make her look bad. Hulk's lawyer said Linda would do anything to stay in the spotlight. Their reality show, Hogan Knows Best, had ended by then, but insiders believed the show made things worse at home. The situation got so dark that Hulk later admitted he thought about ending his life during that time. Their daughter Brooke was stuck in the middle, especially with the scandal involving her friend. The divorce didn't just break the family, it put their $30 million fortune on the line. Every dollar became a fight. When the final deal was signed in 2009, Linda walked away with 70% of their liquid assets. Hulk got just under $3 million. Linda got another $3 million in property and a 40% share in Hulk's companies. She also got more than $7 million from their joint investments. Hulk had to sell off several properties just to keep up with what he owed. On top of it all, the court made him pay $180,000 for Linda's legal fees. At least he avoided ongoing alimony, and by the time the divorce ended, their kids were grown, so child support wasn't part of the deal. Still, the settlement hit hard. Then, things took an even darker turn. In 2011, Linda published a memoir. In it, she said Hulk had physically abused her. She described him tearing her clothes, throwing things, holding her down with his hands around her throat. She said she was afraid he would kill her one day. In interviews, she even said she feared ending up like Nicole Simpson, the ex-wife of O.J. Simpson. Linda claimed she never went to the police because she didn't want to hurt the family's image. She also shared how broken she felt during the marriage, wondering if she wasn't smart enough or pretty enough to keep him interested. These accusations painted a disturbing picture behind the scenes, far from the hero persona Hulk had shown fans for decades. Hulk didn't stay quiet. That same year, he filed a defamation lawsuit against Linda. He claimed she made up the abuse stories and, even worse, implied he had a romantic relationship with one of his closest friends, fellow wrestler Brutus the Barber Beefcake. During a TV interview, when asked if the rumor was true, Linda said, "Well, a little bird told me yes." Hulk's lawyer fired back hard. He said the claims were false and damaging, and that Hulk had had enough. The lawsuit asked for a jury trial and demanded that Linda stop making public statements that harmed his name. The damage, Hulk said, went far beyond gossip. It had made people doubt him, hate him, and laugh at him. After his messy split from Linda Hogan in 2007, Hulk tried to start over. He met Jennifer McDaniel, a talented makeup artist in Hollywood. They got married in 2010, just 2 years after they began dating. Jennifer had even been nominated for an award for her work in film, and for a while, things seemed peaceful. But then came another scandal. A sex tape of Hulk and one of Jennifer's friends, Heather Clem, got leaked. Heather was married to Hulk's close friend at the time, a radio host nicknamed Bubba the Love Sponge. The public was stunned. Even more surprising, Hulk and Jennifer stayed together after the tape went public. They even sued Gawker Media for releasing it. But the damage was done. Quietly, in 2021, Hulk filed for divorce. He didn't say much until months later, when he casually mentioned on Twitter that he was divorced and already dating someone new. Her name was Sky Daly. By 2023, Hulk was ready to get married again. He was 70. Sky was 45. She was a yoga instructor, and they had been dating for over a year. He proposed during a friend's wedding, in front of the guests, proudly shouting that she was crazy enough to say, "Yes, brother." They married that September in a small Florida church. It wasn't flashy, just close friends and family. Sky's kids were there. Hulk's son Nick was too. But his daughter Brooke wasn't. She couldn't make it on such short notice, or maybe she didn't want to come. Hulk wore a black tux with his trademark bandana, and Sky wore a sparkling gown. It looked like a fresh start. But the past was never far behind. In 2015, a private tape revealed Hulk using racial slurs. It hit the media like a bomb. WWE dropped him immediately, scrubbed him from their site, pulled his merchandise, erased him from their Hall of Fame. It was brutal. On TV, he looked broken. He said it was the lowest point in his life, and he even admitted to having suicidal thoughts. He said he wasn't racist but grew up in a rough environment. It took him 3 years of apologies and volunteer work before WWE let him back in. Even so, the stain lingered, and in 2024, it resurfaced again. An influencer named Essence Jenai claimed Hulk fired her after just 1 day of promoting his new beer brand because she was black. She showed texts and social media proof. Her contract was supposed to last a week, but she was suddenly replaced. It stirred up all the old debates. Had Hulk really changed? Or was it all just for show? Meanwhile, his daughter Brooke had been quietly building a life of her own, without her parents. In 2022, she married Stephen Oleksy, a former hockey player. Neither Hulk nor Linda were invited. Months passed before the public even knew she was married. Then in early 2025, Brooke gave birth to twins, Oliver and Molly. Again, she kept it private. No phone calls, no visits, nothing. When Linda found out, she posted a video online, crying, saying she was heartbroken, claiming she and Hulk had been completely shut out. She said she had no idea her daughter had even gotten married. But then Stephen stepped in. On Instagram, he said they had tried. They invited Linda to concerts, reached out, tried to include her, but every time they hit a wall. He said their wedding wasn't meant to be secret. It was just the only way they could avoid drama. According to him, Hulk had once said weddings aren't fun anymore. That said a lot. And then came Brooke's post. It dropped on March 27, 2025. After nearly 8 years of silence, she spoke. Her words were sharp and careful. She said she'd seen her mom's video and couldn't stay quiet any longer. She said what she was about to share was just the beginning, that it barely scratched the surface of what she had lived through in her family. The post exploded, over 500,000 likes in one day. It felt like a final break from everything that came before, a new start, maybe for her kids, maybe for herself. While the world kept watching the Hogan family like a never-ending drama, Hulk carried on, posting about his life with Sky, smiling in photos, acting like everything was just fine. But under the surface, the cracks were clear. The scandals, the lawsuits, the heartbreaks, the broken ties. The story wasn't just about a wrestler anymore. It was about a man who kept trying to rebuild his life, even as the pieces kept falling apart.